Alright, so I'm going to be showing you how to open up and disassemble this Acer Aspire A515-44 series, model N18Q13. Alright, the exact model is A515-44-R41B. Alright, so we're going to be taking this thing apart because the charge port is broken, so we need to replace that. Alright, to do that, it looks like we're going to be using a JIS1 screwdriver. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that and remove all the screws on the bottom. You want to keep the screws in order because they can be different size, shape, and lengths. The way I do that is I put them flat side down like that on my desk in the pattern I remove them. So you got 3 here, you got 4 here, and then you got 4 down here. Alright, so let's go ahead and remove all those screws and put them in order. If you have issues with your computer, like starting up properly, like it just stays on a black screen or something, you can try using a bent out paper clip, and there's this little hole here. Push that, there's a button, you'll feel it click, hold that for about 15 seconds, and then see if your computer turns on after that. That's basically like a battery reset kind of thing. Alright, and sometimes that fixes the issue. Alright, if this video helps you out, please make sure to like, subscribe, share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade and repair their devices as well. And if it helps you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. If you can't do that, it would help a lot if you could watch a few of my other videos and then like and comment on those as well, because the YouTube algorithm likes to see that. Alright. So anyways, let's go ahead and continue getting all these screws out, and then we're going to pop the bottom cover off and get to replacing the charge port. So right now the charge port over here is super loose. We got the replacement one here. Looks like that. Okay. It's very small. Hopefully it's the same one because I got it just based off the model number. I didn't have the laptop open at the time to check it. Alright, because the customer had it with them. Alright, anyways, usually what I do is I get my fingernails in the gap there, and then I'll push on the palm rest. Alright, and if that doesn't work, we'll try something else, but usually this works, so let's see. Alright, it varies from model to model. Yeah, it looks like that might not work, so let's go ahead and try. It looks like the side is actually popping up after doing that, so let's see. We'll pull up on this, and then I'll just get my fingernail in there and slide it across. Looks like that's working. So we're going to pull this up, same thing, slide my fingernail across here and see. Looks like that's working. I'm pushing down with my fingernail as I kind of slide it across, and you can see it kind of popped up most of the clips there. Alright, go across the side there, and there we go. After we got the sides and the front out, it looks like the back kind of releases, and you kind of just wiggle it like this to pop it out, and there you go. That's the inside or the bottom cover. Alright, okay, so next thing we're going to have to do here, it looks like this was open before because it looks like it has aftermarket RAM, but yeah, okay, let's go ahead and get a thumbnail here. Sorry, it took me so long to line that all up. Okay, and it looks like the charge port is on this motherboard side here, and it's only this little board, so we're gonna have to get that whole board out. All right, first thing first, we're gonna disconnect the battery. So let's peel up this tape to get it out of the way. Excuse me, let me zoom in here. All right, usually to get these connectors out, they have these wings here, and what I do is I grab the wings with my fingernails and I kind of just wiggle it as I pull, and there you go, it pops out. All right, on some models you can't really do that. It just depends how it's built, and if you don't have fingernails to do that, you could either let your fingernails grow out, or you can find some plastic tools to kind of help do that. If you use like tweezers or pliers, be very careful because you don't want to scratch into the motherboard there. Okay, so we got that out. Are there screws holding this? How's this being held? Looks like there's some tape here, some adhesive that runs across here. Kind of weird. All right, and are there actually no screws? So I pulled out that tape and this thing just pops right out. So that's really weird. I would assume that there should be screws here. They have these little holes here which usually hold these little brass things that kind of go into there, but in this case, I don't know, it was just, I guess, held in place by the bottom cover. It's kind of strange. All right. Anyways, we're gonna have to go ahead and disconnect everything. Oh, sorry, there's the battery model number here. If you need to replace the battery, it's AP19B5L. All right, there we go. We'll set the battery aside. Okay, so we don't need to take the entire motherboard or like everything out of here. We just need to get the motherboard out. So as you can see, there's these activity lights here for the battery and I guess the hard drive activity, USB port, or maybe this is just for the power, and then USB and the headphone jack. All right, that's actually all held in on this one board, and then it connects with this ZIF or zero insertion force connector. There is a model number for this board right there, the DA0Z8ETB8B0. Okay, and it looks like this is just a metal thing for putting those kind of locks in there. It looks like on some models they have all this empty space. They probably put a CD drive, and then yeah. All right, anyways, let's go ahead and start disconnecting a bunch of stuff. I guess we'll go over the RAM and stuff first because that's probably stuff people are going to want first. I'm going to pop these two tabs to the side, and then this pops up, and then you can go ahead and pull that out. This is a 8 gig DDR4 2666, all right? So you should be okay with any DDR4 2666 or PC4 2666. All right, so we're gonna put that back in because we don't need that. Well, actually, to get to that, I'm gonna take that out just so we don't accidentally heat up the RAM stick. Okay, one thing to do after disconnecting the battery, especially if you're gonna be messing with the LCD LVDS cable here, we're gonna actually carefully open up the laptop. You wanna do this very slowly. All right, and then we're gonna press and hold the power button here for at least 15 seconds to drain any residual power. Right, this is very important because if you don't do this and there's some power in the capacitors and things like that, if you accidentally pull the connector out at an angle or crooked, you can actually end up frying the backlight circuit. You can fry the screen, you can fry the connectors, so just be very careful. All right, and then to close it, what I like to do is I like to hold the hinges here. All right, and then wrap my fingers over the edge and then squeeze it. Sorry, let me get it in video. Squeeze that together like this, okay? And the reason for that is since this screw's not in and this screw's not in, a lot of the force when you close it is pushing up on this, and you don't want that to rip these screws out. Okay, so we're gonna disconnect the LCD LVDS connector, flip this latch up. You can see that it has a ZIF or zero insertion force connector. Once you flip that latch up, you can pull this up slightly because the wings here get caught by these raised plastic pieces. And then while you're pulling it up, you can go ahead and pull it out. Okay, just like that. And it looks like it's routed in the hinge here, so just be careful when you take this out that you're not gonna get that caught in anything. This hinge is going to be in the way when taking out the motherboard, so we are going to have to lift it up. Hopefully we can lift the hinge up and it won't like hit this casing and get in the way. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the screen a little bit. Okay, so get my fingers in there and pull it up, and then now that we have a gap that I can just put my fingers between the screen and the keyboard, we're going to undo the two screws there. Okay, and the reason for that is when we close this, the hinge should stay up. All right, so we're going to hold this cable out of the way, and we're going to take these two screws out. Sorry I didn't show the SSD yet, but I'll get to that. Let me just get these two screws out real quick. Okay, now that we got those two screws out, you can slowly, carefully let it close down, and again, push down on the hinge here so you're not getting all the force into the screws. All right, so as you can see, this hinge stays up now. Okay, and let me see here. I'm gonna do, what did I, okay, I want to make sure I don't mix up the screws. There we go. Okay, so now that this is raised up, you can get your finger under there and you can pull this up higher. You don't need to pull it too high, and you don't want to pull it too high or you can damage that. So just pull it enough so that you have access to the motherboard here. Here you can see the charge port, and we're gonna see here, and as you can see, this lines up perfectly, the replacement one. So we should be good. All right, as for the SSD down here, it's an M.2 PCIe NVMe, I'm pretty sure. We're gonna undo this screw here. After you undo that screw, you can see the SSD pops up, and then you can kind of wiggle and pull it back, just like that. And this is a Western Digital NVMe SSD. It's kind of interesting because this NVMe SSD has two notches in it. Normally the NVMe ones only have one notch, so keep that in mind. You can also see here, they only put one notch to block it. All right, So we're gonna set that SSD aside. And also you have the CMOS BIOS RTC real-time clock battery connector here, or the battery and the connector here. If you need a replacement CMOS or BIOS battery, I do have a deal going on with a company that gives, I think, 15% off. So if you need that, just let me know. All right, to remove this battery, also you want to take note of the positive and negatives connections. So the red or positive wire is going towards the SSD and the black wire is going out towards the outside over here. That's important because sometimes if you just buy a battery that looks similar, the connections might be flipped, and if you plug that in, you can damage your motherboard, right? So now I'm going to get my fingernails in the wings of that connector and just wiggle to pull it out, just like that. All right, came out pretty easily. You can see the touchpad trackpad connector here going underneath this tape. You want to be careful when peeling out any tape. You don't want to pull the tape up, you actually want to just roll it backwards. So grab that, and then you can see we have that, and we're going to just pull it over to the side. All right, you don't want to pull it up because then it will put stress on these connections here. So anyways, we're going to flip this latch up, and then we're going to pull the touchpad trackpad connector out, just like that. And it is held down with adhesive here, so be careful, because if you peel this up and you're not careful and you crease this or bend this wire too much, you can actually damage the internal wires. Here you can actually see where the touchpad trackpad connector goes. All right, you have this connector here, which actually goes to the two speakers, so you can actually follow the wires. You can see the speakers here and the other speakers here. They're not held in with screws, they're just held in with these rubber things, so you can actually just lift it out, and then make sure if you replace it that you get the wires back following the guides here, okay? All right, then we got the keyboard connector here. This one you want to be very careful. It has a sliding mechanism. A lot of people aren't careful and they pull it too hard and then they rip this connection out. That's one of the reasons why I like to use fingernails. You can feel exactly how much force. And here's how I would do it is you would grab the wings with your fingernails, and then you can kind of push on the motherboard here or hold it there, and then you can just pull it just like that. And you can see it slid out a little bit. And then you can go ahead and pull this cable. Be careful not to like squeeze and pinch this cable. You don't want to crease it or damage it. It's best if you can kind of get in between the two layers and then pull it here. So this cable is actually like folded over like that. Okay, and be careful not to like bend this wire back and forth. You don't want to damage that either. All right, you got the wireless card here. So the antennas, black one's going to a black arrow, white one's going to the white arrow. To remove this, you go underneath the antenna, the tail, and then just pull straight up just like that. And same thing with the other one, pull straight up from the tail. You want to be very careful with these. These are pretty fragile connectors, and sometimes they don't solder this stuff well, and then this breaks off and gets stuck inside the connector, which is a huge pain to even try and get out of there once it's broken like that. So keep that in mind if you're taking these connections off. Unless you need to, don't mess around with them, because I've had some computers in the past where the solder's bad and even just lightly pulling it up rip the connectors off. It's pretty rare, but it does happen, so be careful unless you need to. I would try and avoid doing those kinds of things. Right, and that's one of the reasons why on most of my repair videos people ask me show all this, take all these other things out, but these are customer computers, so I'm not going to be like ripping everything out. It's kind of like if you went to the doctor and you're in there for a checkup and then the doctor's like, let me do some heart surgery because I want to make a video. Like, no. All right, anyways, here's the wireless card. It's a Qualcomm Atheros model QC-NF A344A. All right, so there we go. We'll set that aside. Okay, we got this cable here. We're gonna flip this latch up. Once you flip that up, you can go ahead and pull that out. Again, we're not taking everything out. We're just disconnecting what we need to get the motherboard out. Okay, you got the fan connector here. So there's the wings, same thing, wiggle and pull that. And there you go. This one is the keyboard backlight connector. It's you can tell because it's usually this, brownish, orangish, yellowish color. We're going to flip this latch out, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. All right, here you can see on the other side it's like this copper, brown, orange, whatever color you want to call it. All right, anyways, also these latches, you want to be very careful when you latch them back down. You don't want to like use a tool and flick it over. Usually I'll just get my finger and slide it slide my finger down and it locks it down just like that, right? Very gentle, because if you push this over like this, you can actually pull that flap off the connector, so be very careful. All right, there's a little connector here which doesn't appear to be labeled, but I have a feeling this is for some models that can use a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive. And in fact, actually, with all this empty space here, maybe this is for a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive bracket, because that's quite big actually, to be honest. 2.5-inch SATA hard drive is about this size, and yeah, I think it would kind of fit there. So I don't know if they sell a connector for that, but most likely the connection would end up over here and then it would plug in here. And yeah, you would probably have to find a bracket for that. I'm guessing it comes with, or you can get one. All right, what else? I think we disconnected everything. Oh, we didn't disconnect the speaker connector. Oops, I talked about it, but I didn't disconnect it. All right, so what I do, same thing, the wings, just wiggle, keep pulling and wiggling, and there we go. All right, CPU is right here, soldered to the motherboard. Some people ask me if you can upgrade the CPU, and the answer is, if you're asking me that question, the answer is no. But in theory, everything's upgradable. Kind of like asking if a surgeon can swap a heart or something. It's doable, but again, if you're asking that question, you probably can't do it. All right, so anyways, we got to get all these screws out to remove all the other components. It looks like the fan can be removed without removing the rest of the components. So let's go ahead and remove these 2 screws and see. All right, so if for some reason your fan is bad, maybe you can just replace that. Okay, so we'll remove those 2. All right, and yeah, the fan comes out easily, and actually that works out well because there was quite a bit of dust or lint stuff stuck in there. I don't know if you can see that. It's pretty crazy. So we're gonna peel that stuff out. All right, and then I'm gonna use a toothbrush to clean it a bit better. Oh, it's stuck in there. There we go. Okay, so we'll use a toothbrush, brush it up. Usually when I have access to the heatsink inside like that, I'll kind of clean it up like this, and then I have a little handheld squeeze air blower just to blow the dust away. There's some lint kind of stuck to the adhesive here, but it is what it is. Okay, and you can clean that off as well. All right, so there we go. Clean that stuff up. All right, what else we got? I think we have like 2 or 3 screws holding the motherboard down, and that's pretty much it. So let's get this screw out here. Okay, we got that one. There's nothing, oh, actually, there's a white arrow pointing to it to show you where that screw came from. So if you remove all the screws, it looks like that'll help. Okay, so there's another screw here. Also, the customer told me, which I didn't notice until just now, so we got this screw out. They said their son tried to remove this and they stripped a screw, and I found the stripped screw. So let's see if we can get this out. Okay, so I'm gonna push down, and there we go. And yes, I got the screw out. So the reason why they stripped the screw, this is a, like I said, JIS 1 screwdriver. It looks like they used probably a JIS 0. So you want to make sure you're using the right screwdriver bit. You don't want to just take any random one and then use it. I kind of like equate it to where people will have that toy when they're little, and then it's like square holes or round hole or like half circle, crescent circle. You got to put the right shapes in the right holes. When you got a screwdriver, like, just because you can fit the circle in the square hole, you still don't want to use the circle in the square hole. You want to put the circle in the circle hole. I mean, obviously there's other ones that might work. You can somewhat get away with it, but then you run the risk of damaging it. So be very careful. Make sure you use the right screwdriver. Don't just buy individual screwdrivers. You want to buy a whole set with all the different bits, and you can actually put the screwdriver bit in the hole and then kind of like twist it and see if it wiggles. If it wiggles a lot, you don't want to use that bit. All right, so this one's kind of more general knowledge repair, so hopefully that's not annoying you guys too much, but I figured why not, since it has all these different kinds of connectors. The only kind of connector I see here that's missing is it doesn't have the little flip up connectors that MacBooks use for their speakers and stuff. But yeah, so this is going to be like kind of a general computer repair video as well. All right, anyways, we're going to pull this up. So as you can see, I'm lifting from here. You want to be very careful. Normally I wouldn't lift from here if it's like really stuck, but when I was lifting from here, this was kind of staying down. So that's why I kind of lifted up here. But normally you don't want to lift here, because if it's stuck over here and you lift, then you're going to end up bending this pipe, and then you're not going to get proper cooling for the CPU. So I use that just to kind of lift it a little, because lifting this side wasn't lifting that up. All right, so now that we got that up, we're going to carefully pull the entire thing up. And you want to slowly do this, because you want to make sure nothing is stuck or caught, that you didn't forget any connectors or anything. This touchpad connector is stuck to the adhesive again, so let's peel that away. And we're going to slowly, again, lift this up. And you do have to do this at an angle. You can't just pull it straight up. So once you go up that way, we're going to grab this and we're going to pull it that way and up, or lift it just slowly, carefully. Okay, it gets caught on these raised parts, so you want to be careful. So I guess we'll lift it a bit more, and there we go, it came loose. And here you can see the entire motherboard. So this one, I think what we're going to do, we're going to use a hot air station. And hopefully we're going to be able to get all the solder out, because these little holes here, they're super tiny. One other thing I'm worried about is, you see that little piece there, that resistor? If we get it too hot, and then we, since I'm using hot air, I want to be very careful, because you don't want to get that too hot and then this little piece gets blown off the board. So I think what I'm going to do is probably going to have to heat it from this side, end up melting some of this plastic. We're just going to be very careful, and then I'm going to hold on to this with some pliers, and then the weight of the board will just let it plop down. I am going to put this on top of a cardboard box while I do that, so that way it has like a padded landing when it drops back down. And then yeah, so let me get a box here. Give me a second. I'm going to use like a battery box or something from a computer component. I'll be back. Give me a second. All right, I'm back. So I got the hot air station, and also I got this cardboard box. And again, the reason I like to use cardboard is because it has good thermal kind of, what do you call, not resistance, but it doesn't conduct heat well, and well, good insulator. And then also it doesn't really conduct electricity. So yeah, all right, I'm going to use the big nozzle here for the soldering station, hot air soldering station. I'm going to tighten that on there. Okay, and then what we're going to do, like I said, let me see if I can get this in a better position. Actually, I'll rotate the box sideways so I have more room. And then again, I'm going to be holding this up while I heat it. And we got to be careful, because there's all these other components here, and there's this plastic stuff here. We don't want to end up burning that. So let's turn on the hot air station. I just set it to the max, which is 480 degrees, I believe. All right. Yeah, 480, and I set the air to the lowest speed. And first what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just warm up the area around the board, because we don't want all the heat to just be focused in one spot, and then that can actually damage it. So we're just going to warm it up a little bit. Okay, now that it's kind of warm, we're going to grab the old charge port, and again, we're just raising the motherboard off the desk, and we're going to concentrate the air now on this part. Actually, let me zoom in here so you guys can see better. Okay, hopefully that's a good enough view. Okay, so we're going to now grab that, and we're going to kind of concentrate the hot air to this component. And I got to be careful again, because there are those plastic components near it. And yeah, all right, right, so we're just going to heat this up, and the solder should eventually melt to where it'll just plop out. Again, I'm lifting it slightly off the cardboard, and then the weight of the motherboard should allow it to just pull itself out. I already see the front coming out, but the back is probably going to be tough. Oh, there we go. And here we go, we have this removed. So we don't need the hot air anymore. So we shut that off, it's going to cool itself down. And here you can see what the old one looks like. There you go. Alright, got the two wings and then that. The difficult part now is we got to clean all of this up, because if there's solder in there, we're not going to be able to get the new one in. Let's flip this over so you can see, and you can see that little piece is good, it's still in there. Okay, so you can see it's partially, oops, you can see it's a little bit cleared up, like some of the holes, but not completely, and we do need to get it completely cleared up or we're not going to be able to get the new one in. Alright, that's a little bit the trickiest part, is just getting all this stuff out. Usually what I like to do is use a solder sucker pump kind of thing. I'll add a tiny bit more solder here so it's not completely sucked into the hole, and also it reduces the melting point of what's left in there, and then I'll use the solder sucker while it's hot to pull that out, and you'll get to see that. So let me go get those tools and I'll be back. Alright, so I'm back, and actually I usually prefer to have the board kind of hanging over the edge of my desk so I have room to use the solder vacuum. But since I'm recording that, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to use this thing, and this will allow me to kind of like lean it sideways on here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of let me see if I can do this somehow. I'm going to try and angle it here, and this has these little arms that can kind of grip on it. Alright, it's kind of dusty here. Let me get some of that stuff off. Alright, and then this can get that thing off my finger. Get off. Okay, so this thing has these little rubber things that can grip on the board. Alright, and we're going to just grip that. Okay, and I guess I'll move that out of the way. Okay, so now we have access to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this, and then I'm going to use the solder sucker to pull the solder out the other way. Okay, so let me actually turn it this way so I have more access, and I'm going to show you kind of what I use, because a lot of times people like to use this kind of copper wicking stuff, but I feel a lot of times it's not able to get everything out that well. So what I'm going to do, since I have access to the other side, I can kind of see where the little component is that I don't want to heat up and damage. And then I have this little pump thingy that when you push it, this thing comes back quickly and pulls the air out to suck the solder away. Okay, and again, usually with this I do need to add some solder here. It's a little more difficult doing it on camera because I'm doing it sideways now, but I'll do what I can. Alright, so usually the way you do this, I'm going to add some solder here, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add it to this other side to make it a little bit easier, since the solder pump is going to be going from that side. So we're going to heat this up. Okay, and it's difficult to do this sideways, but I'm trying to show you guys what's going on, so I gotta make that sacrifice, I guess. There we go. Alright, so we're gonna heat that up and get that into the hole there. Alright, and we're gonna do that again. This might actually be a bad idea, because any solder that kind of like drips down is gonna go into the rest of the stuff. So let me see if I can rotate it different, just like this. Okay, that works better, and hopefully I can still get the vacuum there, and I can, so I think this will work. Okay, so, or it's not really a vacuum, it's a pump, but anyways, we're gonna heat that, and we're gonna add some solder there. Okay, and we're going to do that for all these. Okay, make sure that when we heat it, it's going to melt. Good. Okay, so I do have to see if it's going through to the other side, and it looks like it is. All right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to heat the solder from the other side, and then we're going to use this pump to try and pull it through, okay? So I got to be very careful here. Make sure I'm just heating that. Okay, so we'll heat that up and then use the pump to pull it through. Okay, so we got that out, and then as we go, we're going to have to pour or pump the stuff out. So let's heat this one. Okay, and slide through. Perfect. So far so good. This is working well. Sometimes these are a pain, so right, let's heat that up, and perfect. We're getting some good stuff here. Usually they have some problems. All right, middle one. Perfect. All right, and now we got the last one. Okay. Oh, this one's being a pain. Okay, there we go. And oh no, that didn't work well. So we're gonna have to put some solder back in there. And I don't think I can heat it from this side to do that, but let's try. Yeah, that worked. Okay, so we got the solder back in. And the reason I do that is because if there's not enough solder, it's really hard to get good thermal conductivity to heat all the way through and melt. All right, so melt that, and there we go. That looks perfect. So next thing we're going to do, we got to get the new one in there, and just to be sure, I'm going to check, make sure it's not the melted one. Okay, because you don't want to accidentally put the old one, this old melted one, back in, and then you're going to have to take it all back out and do it all over again. So we'll set that aside. All right, we got this, and now we want to put it back the same way, and I believe it was like that, where the plastic was on this side because we didn't want to heat from the other side. So there we go. We're going to hold that down. And the other thing is we need to heat from the other side, or put the flux from, or sorry, not the flux, the solder from the other side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually get rid of this, and we'll bring back out the box, and we'll use that to work on it. Okay, so got the box back here. Okay, so we're going to have to put the solder from this side. The only thing is, I don't know if I can get it to stay seated in place properly. So let's see here. I might have to put some solder there, and then it's going to burn my hands. But let's see. Okay, no, I'm going to have to hold it there. Okay, let me clean this stuff off my finger real quick. All right, so what I'm going to do is, to make this a little easier, I have this solder paste stuff, which I like to use a little bit of it just to kind of get it started. It's basically solder mixed with flux, and the flux helps it flow into place. So what I'm going to do, normally when you have solder, there's flux built into the core of it, but this, it's just a paste. So it's kind of all mixed together, but the solder is just like ground up. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit there, and I'm going to put a little bit here. And this is more just to kind of get it started so it sticks in place, and I don't have to worry about it moving around. Okay, so put a little bit there, and we'll do a little on the middle one. A little over here. All right, and this just gets it started. Okay, so I'm holding this in place right now by hand, And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat it enough for it to stick. And I want to be careful because the heat's going to travel through the component and it will burn my finger if I hold it too long. So we're going to go ahead and just heat this quickly. Okay. Just to get it started. All right, get a little of that solder in. And do the same thing over here. Okay, this side I actually put a lot more to where it's already almost completely soldered that I almost don't even need to add more. But yeah, all right, then we're gonna work on the back, make sure I'm not touching the metals that it's connected to. And we're gonna heat that up. All right, and there we go. Then we're going to heat this. And the last one here. Alright, and that's just to get it started. So now that it's all the parts are held in, you can see it's staying in place on its own, and I don't have to worry about it moving around. And actually some of the solder is like completely filled in there, but we are going to fill it through this side. So the way you do that, okay, you get this, and what you do is you heat the component and then you push the solder into the component. You don't put it onto the iron, you actually put it on the component itself. The iron does need to be clean, so you do need to kind of clean it off on like the wet sponge. But yeah, all right, so we're gonna heat this up, and then while we're heating this, we're gonna put the solder into the side here, okay? So heat that and then get the solder into it. And it's a little difficult because it's kind of low. I need it higher, but I don't have another box that's bigger. So we're just gonna try and do this. Okay, so put that up. There we go. Okay, and then once you got that, I'm gonna try and hold this and hopefully it won't burn me. And then we're gonna just melt the whole thing together in there. It looks like all the solder flowed through to the other side, so we're gonna have to put more. Okay. Okay. Heat this up some more and put some more solder in there. Perfect. Okay, so we got that one. I'm gonna rotate this so it's easier for me to work on here. It might be harder for you guys to see, but it is what it is. All right, we're gonna rotate it this way. Actually, let me zoom in more. Maybe you guys can see better this way. Okay. Sorry, this is not really an expert tutorial on how to solder. I'm not a solder expert, but I do what works, so if I'm doing anything wrong, feel free to let me know. All right. Anyways, we're gonna now heat up this more. The other option also is you can add a bunch of flux to this, and then you can just solder easily, but come on, stick on it. There we go. Okay, so we got that one good. I'm gonna check from the other side as well. Okay, because we want to make sure that both sides the solder's kind of going through. As you can see on this side, there's not much solder going in. On this one, you can see it flowed through. This one, not really. So we're gonna apply more heat there and try and get it to flow in. And sometimes adding some flux will help with that, but let's see. It should be good, solid connection already. All right, let's take a look on the other side. Yeah, it's pretty good. It just has some flux in there. Okay, we're gonna do the other three here. Again, we have to be very careful with this tiny little piece that's there. How am I gonna do this? I'll rotate it this way, and I'm trying to make it so you guys can see. So it's tough because there's all this stuff on my desk. There we go. Okay, let's try and get this here. Heat this up. One's good. All right, let's do this one. Sorry for the not super clear video, but it's like a little bit far. Let me see, can I zoom in to make it clearer? Oh, actually, there we go. That's much clearer. Let's get this melted in better. Okay, that one's good. That one's good. All right, let's go ahead and get the middle one. Perfect. All right, and now for the last one. You can actually see the texture of the pins coming through in the video. I can't see that with my naked eye here, but there we go. All right, and then the last one here, I gotta be very careful with that little piece. There we go, float that into place. I gotta make sure that gunk over there doesn't stay, because these three need to stay separate. Alright, and there we go. We got those three in. I think we are good now. So we'll take a look at the other side. Oops, sorry. There you go. Looks good. We're going to clean this up with some isopropyl rubbing alcohol to get rid of the excess flux. Again, we do have to be very careful with that super tiny piece there. So, alright, let me clean up the soldering iron real quick. I'm going to tin the tip so it doesn't get all rusty and gross. Okay. Alright. Oh. I don't want to inhale these fumes. Okay, we'll set that aside. Now we're going to go ahead and just get some paper towel and some isopropyl rubbing alcohol so we can clean that up, okay? Just get a piece of paper towel. Put some rubbing alcohol on it. And we're just going to clean this, okay? You want to be very careful with that little piece there. You don't want to accidentally scrape it off. And you can see it's getting way cleaner now. Okay, clean up all around it. Clean up all around it. Get all nice and clean and shiny. All right, looks good. Am I missing? Oh, we're missing some over here. Okay, this camera is super zoomed in. Actually is really nice. I can see way better if I miss anything. And there we go. Clean this a bit better. Alright, there we go. Is there still some stuck there? Or is that scraped or something? There we go. Okay, that's probably about as good as we're gonna get it. Then we got the other side here, and we'll just clean it a tad bit. Flip that over, clean it up. Okay, we can't really clean on the other side, the underneath of the other side, but we'll clean this best we can. Okay, and there we go. Got that all cleaned up, and yeah, we can't really clean around this because it's trapped underneath the plastic. So there we go. We're done with that. Let's go ahead and put this thing back together, and hopefully the new charge port works really well. Oh, okay. I'm gonna clean up my desk real quick. We'll put this here. I'm gonna put all the other stuff away that I was using to solder away, and I'll be back. See you guys in a bit. Alright, I'm back. Let's get this thing reassembled. Okay, we got the entire keyboard, screen, assembly, everything here. Okay, so we'll get this lined up here. Let's zoom out a little more. And we'll just line that up. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna use this for a thumbnail as well, I guess. Okay, so we got that all. Now we're going to go ahead and put the motherboard back in. So to put this back in, you do have to, again, put it at that angle. And of course, there's all these cables, so you want to be careful. Make sure you can get those back on top. Alright, so we're going to go in at an angle like that. Slowly lower it down. Make sure any cables that you're going to be lowering this down on top of end up back on top of the motherboard. So we're going to pull these cables, touchpad, trackpad, CMOS BIOS battery, LVDS, this one as well. Slowly lower it down, and there we go. Everything appears to line up well. You do want to also check that the charge port lines up. So I'm gonna check this. I'm gonna hold this in place and make sure it does, and it clicks in. Before it would just fall out, be very loose. So now it at least clicks in. Hopefully their charger wasn't damaged with the faulty charger, but for now it looks good. All right, we're gonna slowly, carefully push this down. You want to be careful because there's a raised plastic mount here that sometimes they don't line up right, and then you might not get it down in place. But that went in nicely. Okay, we're gonna push this cable back down. Let me actually zoom in here. Okay, got that. Push that back down in there. Get this all tucked in, and then we got this cable. Make sure there's nothing shorting on here. Some people get annoyed that I wipe the connectors with my fingers. Yeah, unless your fingers are crazy, gross, greasy, or something, you're not going to really have any issues with that. Just make sure that you don't have any static that's going to destroy it. Yeah, the connectors and pins are gold, and yeah, gold doesn't really corrode easily. It might get some film over it, but it's not going to get screwed up. Alright, anyways, we're going to switch back over to the JS1 screwdriver because I switched to a different one, and we're going to screw these back down. Okay, you want to make sure these screws are nice and tight. You don't want these screws coming loose. Alright, so, did I just put the wrong... Let me get my other screws back. Sorry, this was one for the fan. Alright, here's the actual hinge screw. And actually, a lot of these screws are the same length, so it makes it a little bit easy if you accidentally mix up the screws. Again, I guess the customer tried to remove it before, so they actually probably mixed up some stuff anyways. But it's pretty straightforward. The motherboard has really short screws, and then the bottom cover, the fan, and the hinge all have the same screws, it seems. But either way, it's always good to put back the same screws where you got them. Since the customer already worked on it and moved stuff around, I might be putting stuff in different spots, but hopefully it's wherever they put it is good. Alright, so got that short screw holding the motherboard there. We got another one up here. All right. And we got one more right down here. Okay, again, make sure you're not crushing any of the cables, because since we screwed that down, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have to take everything back out if you need to fix it. All right, I'm going to clean the fan a little bit. It's not really too dusty after removing that dust ball, but might as well blow it out a little bit. All right, drop this into place there. Be careful not to drop it onto the motherboard. Luckily, I didn't drop it, because you can damage those little components. All right, we're going to get that lined up, and then we're going to pinch the two. Get that lined up and then pinch the two together. And the reason I don't just push the connector in is because, again, sometimes the soldering isn't done well, and then you can rip the connectors off the board. So you want to be very careful with that. All right, we'll get these screws in. All right, if you've noticed, I'm a little clumsy. It's like 2-3 a.m. right now, so yeah. All right, anyways, we got all those fan screws in there. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get the wireless card back in. So wireless card in like that, at an angle. You can put this in if it helps, but it looks like the wireless antennas will probably be more difficult. So let's go ahead, oh, my bad. Let's go ahead and do the keyboard backlight connector first, make sure the latch is up. It helps to kind of use this, you can use the plastic tab if you want to separate it from there, and then use that to help guide that in place, and then you can push that tab. While you're pushing it, you can slide your finger over to latch it down. All right, just like that. All right, wireless card in, just like this. Then we'll lower this down. Oh, I guess we do have to put this cable first. We can actually put this cable underneath the wireless antennas. Get that lined up. All right, it looks like it's in. All right, make sure, okay. And then slide your finger over the top. There we go, and get this. So it looks like a lot of these connectors and stuff do have specific order that you need to connect them or put them in. All right, we got the wireless antennas. So to get these, what I like to do is I like to just wiggle it around on top, and you'll see it hooks on. Once you get it hooked into place, you can push straight down on top of the back of it. All right, same thing, just get it. And come on, there we go, and click it down. All right, there we go. Keyboard connector here. Again, make sure this latch is slid down. Get this into place. Sometimes it slides back, so you might have to get that in, then pull the latch back, and then while you're pulling the latch back, you can push the cable in, just like that. And you can actually see there's a line there showing how far it's supposed to go in. And then you can hold that in place and then pinch this, and then you can go with both fingers and pinch both at the same time, okay? Just like that. Speaker cable, get that lined up, and then just pinch it in. All right, then you got the touchpad, trackpad cable here. Make sure this latch is up. And get that lined up into place. Come on. There we go, and then slide your finger over. So this one, if you're wondering, the line doesn't actually quite line up with this latch. When you flip it down, you can see there's a lot more empty space there, and that's, I don't know why, but it's by design. Hey, there's another latch here. I'm not sure what that one's for, but I'm assuming maybe some models have a fingerprint reader, and that's what it's for. I don't know. Anyway, CMOS BIOS RTC real-time clock battery. You can go ahead and get that lined up and pinch that in. If you're wondering, there's no specific order for the RAM and SSD. As long as your computer is turned completely off and shut down, you can actually take the RAM and SSD out. You don't need to take out the battery for the RAM or SSD, all right? So there we go, we got the M.2 PCIe NVMe SSD back in. Let's go ahead and put the RAM. Okay. There's some dust there. Make sure you don't get dust caught into the slot or on the RAM, because if you push that and it doesn't make proper contact, then it's not going to work right. Same thing with the SSD and the wireless card and all the other stuff, obviously, but the RAM is probably more easy to accidentally do that. Okay, let's zoom out here. I think we're just about done. We have the battery, and I think that's it. You want to double check all the connections, especially the LCD LVDS. If you plug in the battery before plugging this in, you want to disconnect the battery, open the laptop, press and hold the power button again for at least 15 seconds. If you don't, again, you run a big risk of damaging your computer, so don't play games like that. Play it safe and do it right. Okay, we're going to go ahead and peel this up out of the way, and we're going to line this up. Also, if you're getting a replacement battery, take note of the way the connection is. The red wires are going towards the SSD, and the black wires are going towards the wireless card. You don't want to plug this connector in upside down, or you'll completely destroy your computer. Alright, so line that up. Make sure it's in straight, and then you can go ahead and pinch it in. Make sure it goes in at the same time, not that one side is going in first, or you can bend the pins in there, and then you're going to have a big problem. Okay, and I think that's about it. We got everything reassembled, right? Okay, I think so. Let's zoom in here. We got everything reassembled here. There we go. We'll get the bottom cover back on. It's a little dusty, but not really. But might as well just brush it and blow the dust out while we have it open. Okay, so we got all of that. I think everything else is in. So let's get this lined up. Get the back in first. Click it all down. And I don't know if this was popping out because they tried to open it themselves. So maybe I should try opening this again just to show you guys. Okay, so again, I like to open this and then start with my fingernails in the gap. And let's go ahead and push. And it did pop out a portion of it. So yeah, I think once you start and you get a little crack or wedge in there, then you can work your way around. So there we go. We'll pop that back down. Okay. Anyways, let's go ahead and get all these screws back in, power it up, and see what we got. We're going to plug it in also. Make sure that the power light comes on, because obviously if the charge light doesn't come on, then we did this whole repair for nothing. But from the feeling of it, with it being like a more solid click when we plug it in, I think it'll be fine. Okay. Alright. Get all these screws in. Last few. We should be good to go. And also, if you want, you can test it before putting all the screws in, but from what I looked at, it looked like everything was connected right, so we should be good. Worst case, I have to take all the screws back out and do it again, but I think we should be good. Alright, so we've got all of that. Okay, so we'll flip this guy back over, open this up, and power it on. Keyboard is lighting up, so that's a good sign. We should be good to go. Since we disconnected the BIOS CMOS RTC real-time clock battery, a lot of times it's going to take longer to boot up, so keep that in mind. If your thing is taking a long time to show anything on the screen, a lot of times it's just the BIOS is resetting itself. So right now the screen is black, and it's still black, and there you can see it. And it's still black. Hopefully there's no weird issues, and it's just resetting the BIOS. Sometimes also it can be the RAM needs to be reseated again. But yeah, right now keyboard is lit up and the screen is black. Oh, and there we go. We got the Acer logo. So yeah, sometimes the computers scare me because they take even longer. So just be patient when disconnecting the batteries, CMOS, BIOS batteries and stuff. And when you turn it back on, it can take a while. Okay, so it's loading Windows 11. I don't want to show their user account stuff because sometimes customers are kind of touchy with that. But here you can see it says 10 Sunday, July 23rd. But the actual date and time is 3:16 a.m. July 25th. So that's going to need to be reset because the BIOS battery was disconnected. That's why it's showing that. All right. They did have a little USB thing here, so we're going to put that back in. And let's see. Let's go ahead and check the charging. Is there a light here to show? Okay, so we have the battery light here. You can see it's not on right now. We're going to go ahead and plug this in. And there we go. Battery light is orange, solid orange. It's not turning on and off. And the cable is solid. It's not falling out. And now it went to blue. So it must be fully charged. Maybe they were saying they were propping it up to keep it charged. So looks good. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Yep, it looks like the battery is full according to that little icon down there. So yeah, other than that, that's all there is to it. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. Again, if it did, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share my channel with others so that they can learn how to upgrade and repair their devices as well. Excuse me. And if it helped you save a bunch of money, please consider contributing a little to the channel. Every little bit helps and allows me to continue making these videos for a living. This isn't just something I say, it actually does help. If you can't do that, if you could watch a few of my other videos and like and comment on them as well, because YouTube likes to see that. But really, anything you can contribute, even like a penny, 5 pennies, whatever, it's all very helpful. Right now, a lot of people are too embarrassed to send like a penny. But if like every one of my viewers sent me a penny, it's a lot of money. So yeah, just think about that. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Let's drop this. Bye.